Hello everybody, I'm Henry Gifford and this is my partner Chris Benedict.
Hello.
We work together designing energy efficient buildings and overseeing their construction. We've got about 70 or 80 buildings done now with people living in them, and they are the only buildings in New York State that are energy efficient enough to show the fuel bills, and the fuel bills show that they are very, very efficient. So we'll tell you what we do to make buildings energy efficient. We work on new construction, we work on gut rehab, we work on fixing up existing buildings. But we work in this world where we work in a very dysfunctional industry. We are involved with the largest field of human endeavor in which nothing is measured, building energy use. You could say, well, Con Ed measures it every month, but nobody pays attention to that. So it's a little worse than nobody measuring and nobody knowing. So just how much energy are we talking about? This is the picture for all the energy use in the US. Here are the sources, and here's where it goes. Residential and commercial buildings combined use about 40% of the energy in the US. That's all the energy. Transportation is only 28%. These numbers are not percent, they're quantities of energy, so they're not exactly, they look like 100, they hit 200, they're not. So if we, let me see, if we took away about 3/4 of the energy used by buildings, that would be the equivalent of avoiding all the energy used by all the cars, trucks, trains, ships, and planes in the US. So, pretty important piece of the puzzle. So green buildings have become popular, and there's about 40-something rating systems now. A new one maybe every month or two. The only one anybody's heard of is the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED system, Leadership in Energy and Energy Efficient Design, it stands for. And they say that their buildings save a significant amount of energy. It's widely believed that they do, and they paid for a study which found that they save 25 to 30%. Now, this is a scandal because this is the only study that's ever been done. This is a very important thing. How much energy do buildings use? How much energy do green buildings save? There's been one study done, and it was done 7 years after the LEED system was started. It was done well after LEED became required by law in many parts of the U.S. So we've got this rush to adopt something that nobody knows if it works. In the study, they compared the median energy use of LEED buildings to the mean energy use of the CBEX data set, Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey. That's a federal database of many thousands of buildings. Comparing the median of one data set to the mean of another data set comes up with a worthless and meaningful comparison, which in this case was convenient because it made the LEED buildings look much better. This conclusion, however, was simply fabricated. It's not supported by anything in the study. That was just an invention. This unfair comparison shows LEED buildings using 24% less energy than comparable buildings, so there's nothing there to support the 25 to 30% claim. They did other interesting statistical things. They took out the high energy use buildings from the study. That's like if the tobacco company well, those people died, so we took them out of our study. And another thing they did was they compared the LEED buildings to all the CBEX buildings. And they used this figure for comparison. But that's for all the buildings, including those dating back to the 20s, while the LEED buildings are all new. They're all built since 2000 because the LEED system was started in the year 2000. So down here on the same page, there's buildings categorized by year. And if you use the most comparable data set, you get a very different number to compare to. So by comparing median to mean and comparing new buildings to old, they came up with something that looked okay, wasn't good enough, so they invented a better result. And the actual value, the mean value for how much energy these buildings use was not in the 66-page study. They published the study, and they never said how much energy the buildings use. But I found out how much energy the buildings use, and their mean energy use is 105,000 BTUs per square foot per year, and we compare that to the 81.6% for the new buildings in the CBEX data set, the same data set they chose to compare their buildings to. LEED buildings use 29% more energy than comparable buildings. LEED is required by law in Connecticut for many buildings. There will be meetings in February to discuss or perhaps finalize LEED becoming required by law in Yonkers and New Rochelle, and it's spreading rapidly. So this is a catastrophe for our country. This is one of the better known LEED-rated buildings in New York City. It's described by its owners as the greenest office building in the history of New York City. The lights stay on throughout the building all night. The LEED system requires commissioning of all controls within the building. Let me explain what commissioning means. Once upon a time, engineers designed mechanical systems for buildings, and then they went and looked to see that they were installed right and they were around to make sure they got set up right. And if there were problems, the engineers knew about it. Then people stopped paying engineers to do that, and they just put the designs out there, and the contractors had the responsibility to get them to work. And sometimes they did things to get them to work which compromised energy. If it's a question between comfort of the occupants versus energy, they're going to make the people comfortable. That'll stop the phone from ringing, that'll get the check to come in the mail. So that caused buildings to use more energy, and it caused the feedback loop to the engineers to stop. The loop was broken, and engineers stopped learning what works. Now I'm making broad generalizations here, which have all the disadvantages, but all the advantages of broad generalizations. This is really what's going on, is that the engineers are no longer there to get it to work, and the contractors now aren't even expected anymore to get it to work. So there's this new person, the commissioning agent, who's supposed to try and get the engineer's design and the contractor's installation to somehow work according to the intentions of who knows. And so LEED points are awarded for commissioning, and neither the contractor nor the engineer learn now how to get the stuff to work. And part of the LEED system is a requirement for commissioning of all systems. This building, the owners proudly boast about controls which turn the lights on and off according to occupancy and according to daylight. So, assuming that there's no occupants at 3 in the morning in every room, these lights should be off all night. So I think nobody commissioned this building. But they have a big LEED gold green building plaque on the front door, because LEED doesn't measure anything. LEED claims to measure greenness, but of course that can't be measured. They don't measure energy use. They ask for an estimate of how much energy will be saved. Points are awarded according to the percentage savings over another imaginary building, like for instance a building with no walls. You can build a building with no walls, compare it to another building with no walls, and say our building with no walls is better than the imaginary building with no walls by X%, and you get so many points. That's what was done here. This building has no walls, it's all glass, and the lights stay on all night. And famous, and this stands as a model, as an example for our country and for the world of what to do, which is a terrible catastrophe. The solution is for the engineer and the architect to work more closely. This is one of the many solutions, but in terms of the dysfunction of why the right things don't get used in the right way, this is the problem that needs to be solved. Until this is solved, if each person stands in their own box, their own trade, their own area of responsibility, not interacting with the others, it's like the guy that designs the car, and the other guy designs the wheels, this guy the body, this guy the engine, and they don't talk.